You ready? I'm going to gavel. Welcome to Education Administration Subcommittee. We'll call the meeting to order. Members, please log in and make sure you enter the meeting. Then record your attendance. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, we have 6 members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, any personal orders today? All right, seeing none, let me give you a couple updates to the calendar without objection. Item number 3, House Bill 764 will be rolled 2 weeks. Item number 6, House Bill 81 will roll 1 week. And item number 7, House Bill 682 will be rolled to the heel of today's calendar. And with that, that brings us to item number 1, HJR 91 by Chairman White. Chairman White, you're recognized. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Properly motion, properly second. Chairman White.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. The joint resolution I bring before you, I don't know how many people are really familiar with the Southern Regional Education Board, also known as SREB. Some of us, I sat on the board, some members on the Legislative Advisory Committee. SREB has been around since 1948, around 77 years old, and it's a compact of 16 states, mainly southeastern. It starts up in Delaware and comes down the East Coast, picks up Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, 16 states. So it's a compact of these 16 states, and does a lot of work. They conduct research for us, collect and analyze data, public reports, and recommend action. And each of the 16 states pays an annual fee because the states use this particular board to conduct a lot of research for them. What we have before us today is the Joint Resolution 91, where the SREB is setting up a crisis recovery network to support states after a crisis in a school or a college. That crisis could be a tornado, flood, shootings, or any other public health emergency. And as we all know, many times the mental health recovery should be a priority for our students, faculty, and community. The SREB Crisis Recovery Network that they will institute will build out and share counselor experience for the long term up to a year. A lot of times when we have crises in our community, there's short-term help, but there's not the consistent long-term help. And there's also not a lot of qualified counselors. So many times communities do not have the capacity for the short or the long-term recovery phase of mental health. So what the SREB is wanting to do through this joint resolution in the compact of the 16 states will build a cadre of trained counselors that can be activated after a crisis. I'll leave you with one story before we ask any questions. I spent one meeting one time with the SREB up in Paducah, Kentucky, where they had a school shooting back in 1997. And of all the things that we asked, well, after this happened, what is the number one thing you found out that you wish that you would have known before the shooting? And to my surprise, really, it was, they all said, we wish we would have put in place experienced and qualified counselors. Because he said after the shooting, we had so many people in the community showing up, and you didn't really know who they were or if they were qualified or not. For one example, they said one person shows up and he says, well, I'm the youth pastor in the church down the street. Well, is he really? Or is he there as a pedophile? You don't know unless you do all this on the front end. So having experienced counselors to help with the mental health after a crisis in the community. So the SREB is undertaking this particular thing, and if this is put in place, then if we did have a crisis in our state or any of the 16 states, you'd have very experienced, trained counselors to come in and work with the community. And with that, I renew the motion on the joint resolution.
Thank you, Chairman White, and thank you, Chairman White, too, for introducing me to SREB when I first came to the legislature, and I've enjoyed attending their conferences as well. And I think it was just last summer that we were, I think maybe in Atlanta, where this was presented, and very happy to support the SREB Crisis Recovery Network. Any questions from our members? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on HJR 91. All those in favor, go ahead and record your vote. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes.
HJR 91 passes to full committee. All right. That brings us to item number 2, HB 545 by Leader Cochran. Leader Cochran, you're recognized, properly motioned, properly seconded, and I don't see any amendments, so go ahead and explain your bill.
All right. Thank you, Chairman and Committee. So essentially, this legislation would require the state to provide professional development on the topic of artificial intelligence to our middle and high school teachers at no cost to the teacher. This professional development would also be provided to new middle and high school teachers as they enter the classroom. It would count toward their required teacher development points, the professional development points, and they could take that obviously at their own pace in the next 2 years. AI is becoming increasingly influential both in the private sector and the public sector, and just in education in general. So we want our teachers to be prepared to deal with this as well, and so that's why we think that it would be very valuable training for them. But with that, I'll yield any questions.
Thank you, sponsor. Chairman Sapicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of a comment. I support the bill 100%. We passed that bill last year, I believe, on how we're going to manage AI in our classrooms. I think this is the next step of making sure our teachers understand of what they can use AI for, what they can't. I just say applaud you. Great job.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, we are ready to vote on House Bill 545, excuse me, House Bill 545. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes.
House Bill 545 moves out to education full.
All right, thank you, Chairman and Committee.
That brings us to item number 4, House Bill 515 by Chairman Gillespie. Do I have a motion? Properly motioned, properly seconded, and you are ready on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee. What HB 515 does is it deals with diabetes and just allowing for more education to take place in K through 12 settings. As I'm sure you know, technology and medical advancements have come a long way, and now there are a couple ways with testing that you can do and find out if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And we're just looking to get into the schools and make sure people, children and parents are aware that these are the signs, these are the proactive approaches, whether it can be simply a test or even going more in depth with nutrition and things like that. Really with that, I welcome any questions.
Thank you, sponsor. Any questions from our members? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 515. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes.
House Bill 515 moves out to education full. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us up to item number 5, House Bill 39 by Representative Davis. Do I have a motion? Properly motioned, properly seconded. You're recognized on your bill, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment that makes the bill. That drafting code is 003973.
Motion in second on the amendment 3973. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The amendment is added to the bill. You're recognized on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. This bill is important to the young ladies in our school system. As we know, there's 1 in 4 girls that'll stay home from school during their menstrual cycle because they have lack of access to those products. And so what this legislation does is it puts those products in the young ladies' restrooms or in the in the gymnasiums, the bathrooms, the girls' bathrooms, not in teachers' bathrooms or staff because they have access to those products already, or in our nursing system. One of the things that I think is so important about this legislation is that last year, when we tried to move this legislation forward, it inspired some young girls in Knox County schools. The way that our school board operates, we have a student representative. And so a former student representative and a current student representative brought this proposal to the Knox County School Board. So Knox County schools this past school year have essentially done the pilot program for this. And so these girls are so clever and so smart. What they've done is in each of the high schools, they have what's called kind of a student ambassador. And what that student does is in the young ladies' restrooms, they have a QR code. So whenever those products get low or get out, other girls will use that QR code to text that student ambassador and say, hey, the restroom on, the second floor needs some more products. And so that's a way for these students to take ownership and be responsible and care for one another, but also help to keep these young ladies in the classroom and give them the dignity that they deserve, that they need, that they have these products in an emergent situation, or, if they don't have access to them at home. So I would appreciate any questions and a favorable vote.
Thank you, sponsor. Any questions from our members? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 39. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes.
House Bill 39 moves out to education full.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
That brings us to item number 8 by Chairman Sapicki, HJR 66. Do I have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Properly motioned, properly seconded, and Chairman Sapicki, you're recognized on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is something that I've been working on with our armed services since the summertime, trying to bring more reason and explanation of why our ASVAB test scores are not high and why more kids aren't taking advantage of the opportunities that we have in the armed forces for education, for career, and things like that. So what this does is it's a joint resolution encourages each local education agency that operates a high school to participate in the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery, or ASVAB, career exploration program, and make the ASVAB test widely available to all of our high school students in Tennessee. And Mr. Chairman, we have some distinguished members here from the armed services that deal with this, and they'd like to be able to testify before our committee, if that's okay with the committee.
Without objection, we will go out of session and welcome our guest up to the table. And you can just pick any chair there. And why don't we begin with introductions, and we'll start on my left, your right, and just go down the row and introduce yourselves, please. And then we'll, if you have a statement, prepared statement, terrific, but then we'll open it up for questions for our members as well.
My name is Master Sergeant Victor Stevenson. I have no statement, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
My name is Command Sergeant Major Floyd Bland. I have no statement, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel William Blake English. I am the commander for Tennessee's Recruiting and Retention Battalion, and I do have a statement prepared if you do not mind, sir.
You're recognized.
Okay, so the ASVAB is a heavily researched aptitude test. The ASVAB provides students as well as their counselors, educators, and parents with the information about their current academic strengths, abilities in areas that can ultimately aid them and explore potential educational and career opportunities. It is offered for grades 10 through 12 in high school and beyond. There is a paper version and a pencil version. Some of the reasons that high school administrators should really think about the ASVAB or the SASVAB: it helps identify current skills and knowledge to learn about potential careers based on personal interest and aptitudes. It is a good practice test for the ACT and SAT. If properly correlated, it can actually give you a pretty well-determined number of what you'll get on the ACT. For instance, if you get a 50 on the ASVAB, you could potentially get a 21 on the ACT or a 1450 to 1500 on the SAT with interpretation by our trained interpreters. It also will determine, obviously, the qualification for armed services and what military occupational specialty that you would be available to do inside the armed services, and to gauge how ready students are to enter the workforce, whether that be college, work-based learning, the military, the federal government, et cetera. And the most important part about this, it is absolutely free. It is at no cost to the education system at all whatsoever. It is proctored by our recruiters or armed service members. There is no obligation to join the military in any form or fashion after taking this test. And it really, the difference between that, the ASVAB and the ACT versus SAT, it's measuring the whole of the person. It consists of multiple areas to include general science, arithmetic reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, mathematics knowledge, electronics information, auto and shop information, and mechanical comprehension. So it measures the whole of the person more so than just the person that wants to go to college. So it is a very good test. Again, it is free, and it's a good aptitude. Matter of fact, 27 years ago I took it, and here I sit before you. So, sir, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Do we have any questions for our guest? Chairman Sapicki?
Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for coming today and testifying about this. Can you go into a little bit more detail and depth on how in our high schools the ASVAB is presented to our students and making them aware of it? And then the results that on average we're getting in our high schools right now of those individuals that are taking the ASVAB in relationship to those that are getting passing scores to be able to qualify to enter into armed services?
Yes, sir. So it is received well in some school systems and not very well in others. I was at an event the other evening, and a teacher came up to me and said that I guess some parents had complained, and they decided to opt out of taking the ASVAB. So it's available for everybody, but the school absolutely has the right to turn it down. So each school has an option. They can do option 1 through 8. Option 1 being they release all information within 30 days. Option 8 meaning they do not release any information to the armed services. If we have an applicant that wants to do it, we can request that score and they will still give it to us, but it doesn't go out to the armed services recruiting network. Unfortunately, given, FY23 and FY24 data, and again, this is only the option 7 and down that we can view. Option 8 is null. We had a 14,283 pass with a 49% pass rate, 14,964 failed, 51%. More people are failing than passing. But I think a lot of that might have to do with not being properly educated as to what it can do. Being a former high school student many, many moons ago, it's, a lot of folks just Charlie down or ABC. They're not taking it serious, and they don't fully understand or grasp what this can do for that individual, especially in the state of Tennessee, when if you join the Tennessee Army National Guard, you can get a free 4-year degree, thanks to you guys. So there's a lot of opportunities for it, and I think we need an opportunity to be able to educate the educators on how it can benefit them, perhaps in their summer in-services, whatever that case may be, to show how important and vital this is to their students' education and their path to whatever they want to be when they grow up.
Chairman Sapicki?
And can you let us know what a perfect score on a perfect score on ASVAB would be versus what is considered passing, so we can get an idea of what that 50-something% that's not passing and what they're actually scoring?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, the score is quite low. 31 is passing. And it goes up to 97 to 99. So 31 is passing. 21 to 30 there's a program out there where we can send them they can still enlist, but it's kind of like they go to a school in South Carolina to where they get them ready to pass the ASVAB. But unfortunately, again, 51% are falling below the 31, which is it's not that difficult, sir.
Follow up, Chairman Sapicki?
And then those students that do score above for passing and want to take advantage of the opportunities that our armed forces and armed services provide for them via regular military or through the National Guard, what are some of those opportunities? And then on the back end, what financial opportunities are there for continuing education?
Well, the Tennessee Strong Act, sir, they are able to get the 4-year degree. You can also, we have several, I just visited a bunch of our recruits, the same as these are the ones that have already enlisted. and are preparing to leave for basic training or have come back, and the vast majority are in college. And they are taking full advantage of this, which is why it's unfortunate some schools block it, because unless we seek that person out or that person approaches us, we don't know, and they don't know that that's an opportunity that we can give them. So it's really sad to say when I hear these schools and our recruiters coming back to where they do not have access to this data, and so they can't fully understand what we can offer. And this is, again, it leads anywhere from you can use the Strong Act to GRFDs, a guaranteed scholarship, Minuteman scholarships, master's programs. I mean, it can all be paid for by the military.
And last question, if you don't mind.
Chairman
My
Subcommittee.
last question to you is, and I keep hearing that, the districts don't want to release the information, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what would be the reason why they wouldn't want to release the information?
A lot of reasons that I've seen, because that was one of my, I've been in this job 5 months. I took this command 5 months ago. So I went out to the field and asked those very questions. Because again, I was still learning all this. And a lot of it is parents don't want that, because they do option 6 is limited. So we get a name and a score, but we don't get their actual contact information. Option 8 completely blocks us out. So it's a lot of it is what I'm hearing is parents not wanting that data released, because it's not just released to us, it's released to all the armed services. So everybody gets it. The phones keep calling, and some parents really don't want that path for their child, nor that they want them being called all the time. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. That's the main reason I've heard, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Back in session. Whenever I go, we'll go.
Okay, I think Representative Glenn, could we get, I think he had a question.
Yeah, mine is when we do go back in
Oh, wait,
session.
okay, gotcha, okay. There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. He wasn't cutting you off, Representative Glenn. Representative Glenn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. As you, I am a retired Army Master Sergeant. So thank you for being in the Army. I met an Air Force 4-star earlier, and I told him I'll give him a pass because I didn't understand why he would do that. As far as in-school recruiting, how often are you able to get into schools and actually talk with kids about the benefits of the military?
Yes, sir. I'm glad you brought that up. It varies district to district, school to school. Some it's quarterly, some it's monthly, and then different ones give us different accesses, whether that be a classroom presentation, which is a little more, I hate to use the word, but it's more hands-on and intimate, if you will. You get more face-to-face time with an individual classroom. Some it's lunchroom presentations. Some it's almost not at all. Some school districts, and we're actually compiling that now because I'm trying to get to the root core so I can go out and meet with these educators and try and get a better way or better access in. I don't think it's clearly defined, and they just kind of they do what they want to do, sir. We try and get access. We do have a lot of resources that we try and pump into this. We try and do teacher feeds, but again, it's on the principals and the superintendents that determine what our access is.
Representative Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, one of the things that I think folks need to understand is when we're talking about a career path, kids need to have access to all career paths, just like we have, TCAPs that come in and talk about TCAP. Colleges come in and talk about colleges. I think kids need to have access to the information of what the military can do, whether it be Army, Navy, Air Force, regardless. So I have a problem with, schools not allowing that access in, and maybe that's something we can look at going forward. But when you are allowed access, are you getting students who actually volunteered to come and see you, or are you getting kids who, maybe if you get in a classroom atmosphere, that's just the kids in the classroom. That's not really folks who are actually thinking about joining the military. So are you actually getting kids who are serious, or maybe that's a career path that they're thinking about, or you just getting any child just to kind of suit the need?
It's a mixed bag, sir. We do get many, especially now, it's odd this year. We're averaging putting in over 100 a month into the Tennessee Army National Guard. We're going to be at 120 by Friday for this month, the short month of February. So we do have a lot of interest, and having that access is imperative, because some folks, they're not going to seek us out. And if that access is there, they will. So when we do the classroom presentation, they also sit up in the lunchroom and they'll hang out for a while for anybody that doesn't want to speak in front of their class or express the interest. But we have a lot of one-on-one time with these individuals. And again, there's a huge surge right now, not only in Tennessee, but nationwide of approachability. And we're turning out pretty good. Yes, sir.
Last question.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think that we do need to make sure that we're getting the right kids in the room, along with parents. And I know that's hard to do in a school environment, especially during school hours. Is there any effort to kind of maybe set something up after school where kids have their parents or can invite their parents to be able to have that conversation so that everyone kind of really and truly understands what it is that the military do? And I say all that to say this, when I graduated high school, I had no intentions of joining the military. It was 2 years later when I woke up one day and realized this wasn't working, and I joined the military. Had I known a little bit more about what the military could have provided for me, then that I wouldn't have wasted probably 2 years after school. And I think a lot of that, relates to having parents who really understand what that, I'd like to say, option B is, because everyone wants their child to go to college, but I like to call it option B is the military. And so is there an opportunity, or is that something to think about, maybe having that opportunity to talk with not only the student, but the parent as well?
Yes, sir. We don't currently do anything like that now per se, but it is absolutely something we can explore. And that's, again, back to the ASVAB, sir. When we're about to send a bunch of people to get trained to do the interpretation, and that can absolutely be a one-on-one or one-on-two or three with the student and the parents to explain what all this actually means. So we are seeking better opportunities to get after the parents as well, so they can fully understand, because that does sometimes become a natural roadblock for us for whatever reason. And normally once we're talking to the student, there is that house meeting or at the storefront where the parents do come. But we're not opposed to doing that at the school, sir. Not at all.
Chairman Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your service to our country. And like Representative Glenn, it was right out of high school. I took the ASVAB, joined the National Guard. And of course, this was the state of Idaho. Within a short amount of time, we all in our youth are looking for what's next in our life and that career. And I'm very thankful for the military men and women that become the leaders in my life at that young age, because shortly after that time, I went regular Army, spent time traveling around the world, and it was the Cold War. And of course, it was at that time the crisis I was with the 56th Field Artillery Brigade, and that was the intermediate nuclear weapons aimed at Russia the whole time under President Reagan. And with that, the lessons that I've learned, and then Mr. Chairman and committee members, there's a direction I'm going with this conversation, because I'm seeing it today in recruitment for our military forces, be it the National Guard or regular Army. And when I finally come back and found I could be taught something at Fort Campbell, I was taking night classes from Austin P. So I got out through ROTC, got my commission, very proud of that. Well, with that, become my college sweetheart is my wife, the lady that I'm married to now for over 30 years. And she became a chemistry teacher and now for 20 years. Within a few years, now picture this, how does a chemistry teacher become teacher of the year? I never could figure that out, but in about 3 years, my wife achieved that. The sad part is shortly thereafter, about 10 years of her tenure as a school teacher, something was taking place with the youth in Tennessee. And I'm sure it wasn't just the state of Tennessee. Here she comes home complaining to me. She says, here I hand out a test. They take the test. They hand it back, and they're not engaged. Our young people are not engaged. She says, I turn around, hand the test back out, say, take another 15 minutes. You all can do better. Mrs. Reedy, give us the grade. We don't care. Now, with that, the current crisis of our world, our country, I'm hoping, and the question is going to go to recruiting efforts. And I know there's young people that are proud to be Americans. And through the ASFAB, this is great. Like I said, I've taken the test. I've done it all from enlisted to becoming an officer. But what do you see? Yes, you've only been in a position for 5 months, but the other gentleman there at the table with you, what are the recruiting efforts, and how can we, the legislative body, help you in your efforts? Because the National Guard, Department of Military is very important to us, but we also know that we have, in the past, while I served with Representative Glenn, we had highly trained soldiers. And I'm afraid over the last few years, we've strayed off of that. And now the speed of corps and the love of country is coming back. The pride in America, honoring that flag, is coming. But tell us how we can help, or what do you see, if you have a crystal ball, with your current occupation, your title, your job? Tell us more of what you think that you might see come down the pike, and how can we help? Thank you.
Sir, it goes back to the access. Access to a lot of these school systems is very inconsistent. That's probably one of the number one complaints I get from my recruiters in the field is just not being able to get to those soldiers, or those applicants. I apologize. Put the cart in front of the horse there. Future soldiers, potential soldiers, or airmen, Marines, whatever. But access is a big deal. And when it comes to this ASVAB, the releasing of the information, at least option 6, to where we can at least get a name. We can track that person down. If you're not giving an address, it cuts out a lot of the PII, or personally identifiable information. But it's really access. We're doing well with what we've got, but there are certain areas where my recruiters are struggling to try and get into these schools, and some of them are becoming more restrictive. I'm not going to actually say that out loud right now because I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. But here recently, we had one school system that really kind of, it slowed us down very much so. To try and get into that school, or that's actually the whole school system. So access is our number one, sir.
Glenn, you had a follow-up question?
I just had one more question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to hear from maybe one of these two, since they sitting there looking nice in the uniforms. Remind me of myself. So when you go out and you actually talk to recruits at their homes with their parents, what is one of the biggest obstacles parents have for kind of, agreeing that child or potential applicant could join the service? What is that one thing?
I think it's much like some of you already said. Parents are the decision makers, so that's where they tend to become the roadblock. It's because they're not really educated on what the military is and what it can provide for them. So there's a lot of fear. Just like when a kid is joining, he's going to go to basic training. They're scared because it's the fear of the unknown. I think that's the same thing. If we can educate the parents, whether it's after school or that would alleviate a lot of that, because at the end of the day, they are the decision makers. Thank you.
You're recognized.
We've talked about access, and that's the key. If we don't have access, we can't share what we can offer. And with that being a problem, the access has got to be more than just like one time, once a quarter, or something to that effect. It's constant. It's like, how many times can we see an individual and talk to them, get them stirred to start thinking about possibly joining the military, not making a decision, but we give them all the information so that they can make an informed decision. Past that is all we really want, is to be able to spread the word, show them what we can offer, and then they make the decision.
Thank you. And being in K-12 education for over 32 years, I'm very familiar with the ASVAB, and we had it administered to our high school students. In fact, I remember going through and getting the training to interpret the results. And so it is a valid and reliable assessment, and very important. The interest inventory, the career pathways information. It's a valuable tool, and I appreciate Chairman Subcommittee for bringing this to our attention and today. Thank you so much for being here, gentlemen, and thank you for your service to our country. Without objection, we are back in session. Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Here's my question. to make sure I'm following this, from what the witnesses have talked to us, the main thing is that if they only had access, where the bill says encourages the LEA. Yes, encourages the LEA. So we're right back to where we started, even when we passed this bill. So my question to the sponsor is if you got a school of, maybe I'm missing a point, if you got a school of 300, 500 students, but we're not allowed into that school, there may be 5 interested. If you can't even get to those 5, then you're doing damage to those 5 with all the benefits that we talked about. So why would we encourage and not require? I'm missing something.
Sponsor, you're recognized.
I personally, I would prefer require. I think our youth out there is missing a tremendous opportunity. My father served in World War II, and the opportunities that the military presents to our children, our students right now, our young men and women who may not know what they want to do in life when they graduate high school, to get some direction, some discipline, some personal pride. I think those are lessons that are measurable. I was fortunate enough in December to spend a week in Israel, and I met a Iron Dome missile battery group of 4 individuals. The commander was 19 years old, and they were all younger than her. And the amount of personal pride that they had, and just the what's what I'm looking for, gentlemen, the awareness of their value in life was just incredible. And then I had a conversation with the gentleman behind you, and just talking about what you have to offer. There's a lot that our children are missing right now, of an opportunity that could unlock the world to some of them. I'm at the will of the committee.
Chairman White?
So my
But that'd be a bill, though. If it's required, we have to run a bill.
Mhm.
And we have spots.
Mhm. So my question, Chairman, thank you, is what burden are we putting on the LEA if we required? It's just access. Am I correct? I know we're back. We're not in. not out of session.
We're back in session, so
So
that it have to be
for
for the
us-
sponsor.
Yeah, I would like to have an answer. It seems like it's something that just access. We're not putting any financial burden. Maybe I'm missing something. Can anyone up here answer that?
I mean, sorry.
Sponsor, you're recognized.
Members, I personally, I hope it's possible that I would like these gentlemen to come, if this bill moves out of here, or this resolution moves out of here, to come next week, because I think our entire education committee should hear this presentation. And then maybe at the full committee, if there's a different will amongst the members, we could fix it in the full committee.
Representative Glenn, did you have a question or comment for the sponsor?
Yes, I did, Mr. Chair. And thank you so much. I agree with Chairman White. I do think we have to use the word require. And the reason so is, we're responsible for ensuring the next generation is prepared and ready for life. And if we get up here tap dancing on, require, should, must, we're playing with our kids' lives. And I think the idea that making sure that kids and parents are equipped with all the knowledge going forward, we have to use the word require. And as they said, that our guest here, a child they can get all the information, still say no. We're not making a child join the military. What we're doing is equipping them with all the necessary information to make a sound decision. And so I think we have to use the word require. And I know LEAs won't like it, but we cannot be toying with kids' lives and future and things like that. I agree with Chairman White. We have to use the word require.
Representative Hurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And And I'm open to the discussion and I like the direction the discussion is going, but I share Chairman White's interest on what exactly we would be putting on the schools. And maybe as we move forward, we can have a little more time to do some, a deep dive into that. Because I'm wondering, are we talking about, allowing access to administer the ASVAB, or are we just talking about access to have them in the schools more? What does that look like, the big picture of what we'd be putting on the schools? I mean, if we get to the ASVAB, we still have the 1 to 8, I guess, the option there, if that's the direction we want to go with requiring. But we all know you have to be careful with requiring. So, extending the conversation into full committee and give us some more time to dive into that. And I think it's a great idea to look into that. But as long as we all do understand, careful on the require and knowing exactly what we're moving forward with toward our schools. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Chairman Reedy, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think we're on the right path in supporting Chairman Subcommittee on this is moving it forward and having more discussion, just letting the state of Tennessee know what we're doing. But at the same time, I don't have a problem dictating to the LEAs, because it's mandatory that we give the ACT. So if we're going to make it ACT, well, at least we should require them to look at the ASVAB, because like we say, we're not recruiting. We're just testing, getting their aptitude on where they're going to go and give them career options. Because I was a C average student. I was Jay Reedy going nowhere. And I admit it, it was interesting. My mom says, well, if you work, I work, we could send you to school. Mom, don't waste my time or your money. And I joined the military and took that path. But Chairman Spicky, great discussion on this HJR. I am sure we can find a caption bill and open this up, get this finished across the line next week, and then figure out how to tag onto it and follow right up with this. Thank you.
The sponsor?
Thank you. I didn't anticipate this at all. It's very nice to see both sides of the aisle coming together, supporting our people in the military. Here's the $1 million question, and gentlemen, you're not going to be able to speak because we're not out of session, but the full education committee is noon next Tuesday. It would be very imperative that if you could be here to the whole committee and have the same conversation. I think that's what the committee would probably want. If you could be here next Tuesday at noon to be able to present this again to the full committee, if the committee moves it out.
Thank you, sponsor.
Is that a thumbs up? Okay.
Thank you, sponsor. We are ready to vote on HJR 66. All those in favor, record your vote. There. I was surprised there for a minute, Representative Glenn. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, we have 6 ayes.
HJR 66 moves out to full education. Thank you, gentlemen. That brings us to item number 9, House Bill 522 by Chairman Reedy.
Motion.
Properly motioned, properly seconded. Chairman Reedy, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, a quick summary of it, enacts the Early Behavior Intervention Reporting Act, requires each local LEA and public charter schools to implement a computer-based system that teachers and school staff must use to input data of early warning signs demonstrated by students. Requires each LEA and public charter school to ensure teachers and school staff are trained to identify early warning signs and input data into the computer-based system. And Mr. Chairman, we do have someone here to give testimony towards this bill, sir, if we can go out of session.
All right. Without objection, we will go out of session and invite up Dr. Amy Grosso. Is that correct? Grosso? Well, we want to get it correct. So there we go. And if you would, when you get there, the mic will turn on. And if you'll identify yourself and who you're with for the live stream. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Amy Grosso. I have a PhD in counseling and counselor education. Background as a mental health counselor and mental health education. Worked in transitioned to K-12 education about 10 years ago, where I oversaw a team of social workers and was a director of behavioral health services for a large school district. Did our suicide protocols and also our threat assessment, any high-level crisis our students were experiencing. I now work for Raptor, where I'm their expert in residence.
Thank you. Members, any questions for our guest? All right. Seeing none, thank you so much for being here. And with that, we will go back into session. Thank you. Chairman White?
Thank you, Chairman and committee. And I do have one question to ask the sponsor. First of all, I support your bill. I think it's a good bill. It's in the wording. Members of the committee, where it says section 1 is fine, but when we get down to section 2, and it says Tennessee Code Annotated is amended by adding "and public charter school" after each LEA. What I'm worried about, if you put a financial administrative burden on each charter school, because you say, first of all, LEA, that could be 50 schools, that could be 200 schools, such as Memphis. So you're having the LEA put these things in place, such as the threat assessment team, obtain training of local law enforcement, conduct threat assessments. But if you put that burden on each individual charter, as it is written, then you put in an administrative burden on them. Now, a charter school is either under a local LEA or they're under the commission, which is also an LEA. So I think we could just change the language in this so that we're not putting an undue burden on each individual, is the way it's written right here, if that makes sense to the committee.
Chairman Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman White, it's before this meeting started, I agreed with that, and understanding the umbrella of the LEA and the way that charter schools fit underneath that. And it's also interesting watching our whole calendar. Every bill we talked about was LEAs and charter schools. So it's like we don't need to forget about our charter schools, because sooner or later they're going to have this same situation. And Mr. Chairman, me being on the Education Committee 8 years ago, we were talking about this and kicking the can down the road, trying to figure out where to go with this. And of course, with this piece of legislation brought to me, it's like, yeah, it's worth the fight. It's worth the discussion to have this discussion once again. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman White, follow up?
So as far as the committee, if we could, I don't know what the committee wants to do today, we can rewrite that, or we'll do it between now and full committee, or however the committee wants to do it. But if we could get a commitment to maybe change the wording so we're not affecting each individual charter school. That makes sense.
Chairman Reedy? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman White, that's right. I would just request to move it out to full, because to me, it's more of a technical correction, if anything, on that section 2 where we just stated.
Chairman White?
I'm sorry. Section 2 and possibly section 3, we'll look at that, but if we can get the wording right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions for our sponsor? Okay. Chairman Sapicki, did you have any questions on?
Yes, sorry. I apologize.
Chairman Sapicki, you're recognized.
Thank you, members. I do apologize. I wanted to catch those gentlemen before they left. The only question I have is, hold on, give me 1 second, folks. Okay. Is in the bill, section 2, you did? Okay, then I'm fine. I'm good.
All right. Chairman White, did you have a follow-up?
I think he's going to say the same thing I did, but go ahead and make sure we're on the same page. Go ahead.
Well, I'll listen to you. You got the mic.
Mine was that a charter school is an LEA, under an LEA, whether it be the commission or the local thing. So we got duplicative language here. We're putting an undue burden on the individual charter school as is written. Is that what you were going to say?
Sort of.
Okay.
I do. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. So one of the concerns I had was in 49.6.2701, it lays out about these safety committees on how they're supposed to work. Charter schools are already part of the LEA, so they have access to this information and these services already. the question I'm asking is this going to create another burden of the charter schools outside of the LEA? And then the other question is it going to shift liability for this to the charter schools? Because now under this, they have to have their own school safety team, which means are they going to have liability coverage because now they're the ones who are saying what has to be in the school safety plan? So that might be a question for legal.
Without objection, we'll go out of session and go ahead, legal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. In Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4962703 provides that threat assessment teams and individual members of threat assessment team and any person providing information of a threat assessment team are not liable in any action for damages or other relief for any lawful actions taken in accordance with the part.
Follow up, Chairman Sapicki.
Okay, thank you for that question. Now, the other question is this, the way this is written, currently under code, the LEA is the one providing this service to the charter schools because they're part of the public school system. Is this going to require that the public charter school create their own school safety team?
Legal, you're recognized.
Sections 2 and 3 of the bill would require public charter schools to establish a threat assessment team.
Okay.
Chairman Sapicki, did you have a follow-up?
That answered the question. Thank you.
While we're out of session, so would this bill create for individual charter schools something that is not currently required in legislation?
Public charter schools under their authorizer of an LEA or the Public Charter School Commission acting as the LEA authorizer, they're required to have a threat assessment team. The sections 2 and 3 of the bill would require the public charter school to establish a threat assessment team.
So then it sounds like it would require an individual school to do something independently of the LEA. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. Question for legal?
Yes, sir.
Chairman Reedy, you're recognized.
So I'm looking at the fiscal note and it's the second page. It says the proposed legislation requires public charter schools to adopt a policy to establish a threat assessment team. However, it does not require a public charter school to create a threat assessment team. I guess I'm confused with that statement.
Legal, you're recognized.
Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4962701 establishes that current law establishes that each LEA shall adopt a policy to establish a threat assessment team within the LEA. Also, it continues on that the threat assessment team must include LEA personnel and law enforcement personnel and establishes requirements for the threat assessment team. The bill would include public charter schools in those requirements.
Do you have a follow-up, Chairman Reedy, or does that answer your question?
Okay, I'm confused. And I think that'll be a kind of a roundtable discussion with me working with legal and Chairman White to flesh the specifics out for this on how already we know the public charter schools fall under the umbrella of the LEA and then how to tie all the loose ends on that makes sense. And I don't know if I just made sense.
Okay. Any other questions for legal while we're out of session? Seeing none, we will go back into session. Any questions for our sponsor? I just have one. I just want to make sure that all of us on the committee are clear on what we're voting on, and your commitment to work with full committee chairman and legal to get draft language that will provide some clarity as far as responsibilities. Thank you, sponsor. With that, we are ready to vote on House Bill 522. If you would, record your vote. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, we have 6 ayes.
House Bill 522 moves out to full education. That brings us to item number 10. Without objection, I think, did you want to roll that, Representative Glenn? 1 week, is that correct? Okay, without objection, House Bill 488 is rolled 1 week. Excuse me. 448. Boy, I'm getting numbers wrong today. So House Bill 448 is rolled 1 week. That brings us back to item number 7, House Bill 682. Without a motion, the bill fails for lack of a motion, for lack of a second. To entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.